Today is Monday, January 29th, and I'm wondering if we've ever had two football games in the NFL semifinals like the ones we had Sunday.
And now, a word from our title sponsor.
Are all financial advisors fiduciaries? Fewer than you think. Not knowing could reduce your lifestyle. Hi, I'm Mitch Kramer, founder and CEO of Fluent Financial. A fiduciary is a regulatory term to reduce conflicts of interest in wealth management. A fiduciary always works in your best interest. A non-fiduciary advisor might put their compensation or company ahead of yours. At Fluent Financial, we are certified financial planners acting as fiduciary advisors. To learn more, go to fluentfinancial.com or Fluent Financial's YouTube channel.
What's damaged your roof? Hail, water, wind, maybe just age. Oh Hail Roofing is where to turn. They've provided the best options, advice, and solutions, be it residential or commercial. For more than a decade now, you can trust Oh Hail to restore your property expertly. Oh Hail. That's OHHHAIL. OHail.com. With seasonings, there seem to be so many, and then they just sit in your spice cabinet forever. That's not true of Goodness Steak Seasoning. I know the name steak suggests that it's very good on steak, which it is, but Goodness Steak Seasoning is so versatile. Use it on veggies, burgers, soups, even popcorn. Get it by going to the website bringthetasty.com. Goodness, this seasoning is good. In the AFC, Kansas City's back in the Super Bowl. And if it seems to you like, geez, Kansas City's always here, you're right. Kansas City made the AFC Championship game for the 6th consecutive year. They won and now are in the Super Bowl for the 4th time in 6 years. You know what's kind of odd about that? The Kansas City Chief, Andy Reid, after a wonderful long career coaching in Philadelphia, was dismissed by the Eagles because he just couldn't get them to the promised land. Boy, he has in Kansas City. But this game, the 17-10 win by Kansas City, was as much about Baltimore's mistakes as it was about Kansas City. The Ravens, Flowers, fumbled the ball going into the end zone for a touchback. Lamar Jackson threw an end zone interception. And there were some of the dumbest imaginable penalties against the Ravens. And it all contributed to their defeat. Now, about this game, Kansas City always had some control of a scoreboard. Baltimore got the opening kickoff, did not move the ball, punted, and that was the only possession in this football game where Baltimore had the ball with a chance to take the lead. Kansas City got ahead, Baltimore drew even, Kansas City got further ahead, and then just simply dug in its heels. Kansas City used a kind of strategy that as you watched it, you felt more and more amazed. Kansas City realized that if this game somehow got into a big old shootout rolling up and down the field, they might not be able to contain Baltimore, and that they had to contain Baltimore by limiting the Ravens' possessions. So Kansas City dug in, ran the ball, threw short passes, kept the clock moving and moving and moving. In the first half, Baltimore had the ball for only 9 minutes. And maybe the star of this game, from a personnel standpoint, was the defensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs, former Giants head coach Steve Spagnuolo. The game plan he had stopped the Ravens cold This is the number one rushing team in the National Football League. And Sunday, their two running backs, Edwards and Hill, got only a total of 6 carries. Now, yes, Lamar Jackson, as he always does, got away for a few good runs, but in the end, Baltimore wound up with a puny number of rushing yards. What contributed to that? Well, the Kansas City offense got ahead of them, and it kind of forced Baltimore to think, I've got to throw to catch up, because when they would run, they were not successful. So they fell into this mode of relying on Lamar Jackson's arm, and that's never been a terribly good thing in Lamar Jackson's career. He now suffers even more frustration. This was the year that Baltimore was going to win it all. This was the best Baltimore team he had ever quarterbacked, and it didn't get to the Super Bowl. Meanwhile, the Kansas City quarterback, Patrick Mahomes, he's now an almost unbelievable 14-3 in playoff games in his career. In the end, though, we circle back to the Kansas City coach, Andy Reid. Reid has never been known, maybe unfairly, as a riverboat gambler, because Reid will take his share of chances. But in the fourth quarter, Baltimore had narrowed the lead to 7 points. Kansas City had the ball with a little over 2 minutes remaining. They could have run the clock down to the 2-minute warning, then punted the ball to Baltimore, and Baltimore, out of timeouts, would have had to have gone the length of the field to score the tying touchdown. Or, on third down and a fair amount of yardage to gain, Kansas City could have gambled. They could have gambled on making one play that would cement the victory. If Kansas City could get the first down, the game would be over. But it was a chance to take. If you throw an incomplete pass there, Baltimore's going to get the ball back with a little over 2 minutes remaining and that 2-minute warning to go. Reid decided, go for it. They threw a long pass to the wide receiver Valdez-Scantling, and he caught it, and Baltimore's season was over. Very quietly, Andy Reid has established himself as one of the greatest coaches in the history of the NFL. Now, coaching decisions would be the central part of the Detroit game against San Francisco for the NFC Championships on Sunday. Detroit broke out of the first half and just dominated San Francisco. They scored again. And when San Francisco scored a touchdown to get it to 14-7, Detroit got an interception when Brock Purdy was blindsided. And then they scored on a Gibbs touchdown. And then just before the end of the half, they kicked a field goal. And Detroit was just rolling at the halftime. 24-7. No one has ever come back from a greater deficit in NFC Championship history than 17 points. But that's what stared San Francisco in the face. They hadn't done well defensively in the first half. They hadn't run the ball well. San Francisco looked like it was a beaten football team. Then the second half began, and San Francisco got the second half kickoff and drove down, but Detroit stopped them and kicked a field goal, so Detroit still had a 14-point lead. And it's then that the focus fell clearly on the Detroit head coach, Dan Campbell. You must know about Campbell. He's an unbelievable leader and motivator. His team may be the most true believer roster in the entire NFL. And they've been aggressive all year long. And it's gotten to where they are. 12-5 in the regular season. 2 playoff wins. And since 1957, the Lions had 1 playoff win total. But here they were, ahead of San Francisco 24-7 at the half, and then 24-10, nearing the midpoint of the third quarter. And Detroit was on the move yet again. And they got to the San Francisco 28-yard line and faced 4th and 2. A field goal would have restored the 17-point halftime lead in the middle of the third quarter. But Campbell is an ultra-aggressive coach, and he decided to go for it. Now, let's stop here and talk philosophy. When you've been beaten up for more than 2 quarters, like San Francisco had been, you hope for a team to do what Detroit did. Go for it. Because if you can make a play defensively, you can get some momentum, you can get some energy, you can get some hope in your sidelines. And when Campbell decided to go for it and failed, San Francisco was in business. They drove down, scored a touchdown to narrow the Detroit lead to 7, scored another touchdown. They had 17 points in the first 12 minutes of the third quarter, and they were down 17 at the half and suddenly had drawn even. And then they went ahead. But then Detroit was not finished. The fourth quarter, pretty close to midway, Detroit drives to San Francisco territory again, and they face 4th and 3 at the 30. A field goal ties the game at 27. But that's not Dan Campbell's nature. And he went for it again and failed again. San Francisco then got the ball, drove the length of the field, scored, put themselves up by 10, and the game was, for all intents and purposes, over. Dan Campbell's a terrific coach, and his aggressiveness has helped Detroit get where they are in this postseason. But Sunday, he may well have been too aggressive. The life of a coach is to be second-guessed. That's the kind of thing you inherit when you become a football coach. But Campbell's decisions on Sunday, not to restore a 17-point lead and then not to kick a field goal to tie the game in the fourth quarter, will be and should be heavily scrutinized.
Today's episode has been brought to you by Fluent Financial, by Oh Hell Roofing, and by Goodness Steak Seasoning.
Just Wondering is a production of DSP Media for FanStream Sports. You can find Norm's show along with other great programming at fanstreamsports.com.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Just Wondering. If you enjoyed it, please hit follow. Then each episode every weekday will be delivered straight to you. And if we might ask one more favor, please share it with friends. I'm Norm Hitzges, and every day I'll be just wondering about something.
And I'm Mary Hitchkus, and I'm just wondering too.